boy Chris, man. We are back here on the Work Hard, Play Harder podcast. Got a special guest today and coming on. His name is Tommy Magelssen. He is the assistant sports editor of the Dallas Morning News. So we're gonna talk sports. We're gonna talk a little bit of Dallas, this and that, favorite things, how he got into sports, and then we're just gonna talk, man. We're just gonna have a good time and this is a guy that I truly admire. He's one of the best writers in the game, and his mind, how brilliant he is, I love it. So, without any further ado, I'm gonna bring him on. Tommy, how you doing today, man?
Hey man, how's it going?
It's going good, going good. I have to say my apologies, man. I was restarting my computer. It was updating, so sorry I didn't get there on perfect timing. Thank you for bearing with me, and welcome to my podcast. Work hard, play harder. Conversations with CD. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
No doubt, no doubt, man. I just want to kind of start off by saying how you been. It's been a long time since we actually had a face-to-face interaction. How you been doing over there in Texas?
Oh, pretty good. I think last time we talked, we were like getting through the winter storm, and now we're going through a heat wave. So change in climate. We're used to the heat wave, but it still sucks nonetheless. Um, and of course, we're finally done with the high school year, and we're on to the summer. But we're charging ahead with baseball and Olympics planning, and we're always thinking about football. So always in a football mindset, I guess.
Absolutely, absolutely. We're going through a little bit of heat wave here too, as it's reaching up to 90 up here. So yeah, as you know, the humidity definitely sucks. But hey, we try to bear with it and deal with it for sure. I'm glad you're doing good. Um, let's get into it, man. I'm gonna talk. I want you to talk about your childhood. Talk about specifically in your childhood. What brought the love of sports? And did you play any sports growing up in your high school years? Did you do any media kind of thing with sports? Did you play sports in high school? But what brought the love and the passion for sports?
Sure, yeah. So I'm not sure if there was any like specific event that kind of triggered a love of sports, but I grew up in southwestern part of Connecticut, and neither of my parents were super into sports. They were both engineers, so they worked a ton, but they were very supportive of, my sister and I, and they said, well, we'll just kind of sign them up for everything, whether it be like, tap dance or soccer or baseball or gymnastics, whatever. There's like, let them try everything, which was great. And, I've always been very competitive. And so I was drawn to sports even as a very young age. And so even though, I was never really going to have like in-depth conversations with my mom and dad about, advanced baseball metrics or anything like that, they
Right.
would support me and like, go, have catch if they had time, whatever. So when I was a kid, played a lot of soccer, played a lot of basketball. I was like incredibly small though for my age.
Mm.
And so I really had to, rely on speed. And it was very tough in a lot of sports, like in basketball, it's like, if you can't get open,
Right.
you're 4 feet tall, you're not going to get any shots. So
Right.
I played a lot of soccer, and that was my primary sport growing up. But we actually moved to Texas right before high school,
Okay.
and so I was very much a culture shock. And if you're 13, 14-year-old, moving to Texas from any part of the country, all you know about are just incredible stereotypes. Kind of the good and the bad. You think, okay, well, I don't have a horse, so what the hell am I supposed to do down in Texas?
Right.
Um, but as you know, it's a suburb of Houston, and so it was totally fine. So I ended up playing football in high school.
Okay.
Again, I was too small, wasn't able to do much of anything, and so that's. But I, still loved like all of the, statistics of it. And I grew up in Connecticut. Huge basketball fan, huge college basketball fan,
Right.
and for whatever reason, I was really drawn to UConn football as they transitioned to I guess Division 1A, what was 1A, was 1AA.
Right.
And so I really followed them, and that's kind of where I developed a love for sports media and following along with that team, like kind of all through high school. Um, and that's kind of how I really found out about kind of the smaller papers covering smaller sports and how there are people just with incredible knowledge. And I didn't really get into the media aspect until college. I think like a lot of college students, I was 17 when I enrolled at Texas Tech, and I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life, like a lot of 17-year-olds, probably like a lot of 27-year-olds. um,
Right.
but I did have a love of sports, and I think like a lot of younger millennials, I grew up, watching ESPN, and you watch the talking head shows, and you always think that you could say something better than them. And I thought, sports journalism, let me look at that. And I fell in love with the journalism part of it, and got heavily involved with my student paper. But it wasn't until later in college that I did that.
Right.
um, but it was it obviously worked out well. It's my career now. And not just the sports aspect, really it's the journalism that I love. One thing that kind of sucks about being a sports journalist sometimes is you're not really a fan. You can't afford to be.
Right.
um, but you have to find other things that you love about the job. And for me, it's kind of seeing the change that we can do, and the impact we can have, especially for those who might be in college or in high school, and those types of athletes. So that's the part of the job that I like, the part of media that I like. And of course, sports are still fun to watch and play, and so that's just the plus.
Yeah, you hit it right on the head, when you said that not only are you a sports journalist, but it's a journalist type of thing, telling stories, storytelling, bringing out stories that are different from just the box scores. That's something that I truly, as I still do find as a challenge to try to find something creative to say in a creative way to bring out a story other than just giving a bunch of numbers. And I love that challenge because I want to continue to try to get better at that. But I definitely understand what you're saying about that. Love the sports, growing up playing, and also getting into the media aspect as well. You spoke of college. You went to Texas Tech, so you're a Red Raider.
Yes.
Um, so, were there any other colleges outside of Texas Tech that could have stolen?
So actually, when I was graduating from high school, I was originally going to UTSA, University of Texas San Antonio.
Yeah,
And really, it's again because I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I had a lot of friends who were going there. And I was like, okay, it's a big city, whatever. But really, it's my love of sports that drew me to Texas Tech. I decided to go there. It was also, the cost was right. So I decided to go there really because I knew that I had like a big time sports program, and like, hey, I want to get like a great college experience. Like, and I would not, it's kind of weird to think back, how much of an impact that had on my life. But it was important to me to go to a school with like good athletics programs. Obviously, I was never gonna to play in college, but it meant that it was a big university. I wanted to go to a big school with a large student body where there were kind of like a lot of things to do. And part of that was, okay, you can go to the soccer game on Friday night, you can go to the football game on Saturday, and then the next week you can, if you wanted to, you can go to the track meet. Although those are all day affairs, and sometimes, man, those are uh, quite boring for some of it unless you're there with some friends. Or
right.
luckily Tech had a really good program, so it was always exciting to watch. But yeah, it was. And then I also, my U of H I looked at, just because it was in the Houston area. But Texas Tech, kind of decided on a whim to go, and it really worked out well for me.
I say so. I mean, obviously, you've been doing your thing at the Dallas Morning News now, and Texas Tech. If I'm not mistaken, at the time that you went, football star Michael Crabtree was there, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, yeah. So I was. It was this. Gosh, I'm trying to think back when it was, but basically that was 2008.
Hmm.
And so I was my third year there, and it was before I started working for the paper. It took me 5 years to graduate, just like a lot of folks. Sometimes
Yep.
you have a little bit too much fun sometimes, and then you change majors a couple times. But
True. True.
yeah, it was a ton of fun to be on campus, and there were just a lot of sports stories coming out of Lubbock then, and that also kind of helped me kind of really get into sports journalism. Obviously, with the team with Crabtree and Harrell, and rising to a top two team in the nation, and the iconic victory over Texas. But
Yeah.
also, Bobby Knight was there, and then he handed over the reins over to his son Pat
Yeah.
Knight.
I was gonna say that. Yeah.
Texas Tech women's basketball was also recognized as a top program in the country. They've definitely declined, but they were still kind of riding that high from Marcia Sharp. And like I said, the track program was, it wasn't where they were now. They were just maybe a rung below.
Okay.
They won a title a couple of years ago. So,
Right.
but they were perennial top 25. And so it was great to be in. A lot of the small sports had a lot of investment in it as well. Softball was the first beat I covered at Tech, and they were like really, really bad until the year I got on there, and they had a new coach named Shannon Hayes who turned them around, and they made the NCAA tournament that first year that I covered them. So it was a lot of fun to kind of see a team rise up. And their soccer team was also good. They were kind of rising up. Their coach, really good recruiter. And he kind of played an exciting brand of soccer that was great for the Big 12. And so it was, yeah, really good sports school. And not only just the success of the teams, but the storylines. Obviously, we had, Mike Leach and his,
Yeah.
he was fired from the school, and then you had Tommy Tuberville, and he, left in the middle of the night, a few years later. And then they hired Cliff Kingsbury, and all kinds of stories around that. And they've had a great offense to watch all these years.
Right.
So there's always stories coming out of Lubbock. And even now recently, even though I'm no longer at the school, Final Four appearance with the men's basketball team and the baseball team as perennial challengers for College World Series. So it's a very good sports school.
Yeah.
I think sometimes it's looked at as not being as great just because the football team hasn't been as good, but
Right.
it's very well rounded, and can kind of compete with most other schools nationally, and especially in the Big 12.
Yeah, and that was the thing I was going to touch upon, the Big 12. Football wise, you look at the Big 12. You look at the Oklahomas, you look at the Baylors, and you look at Texas Tech. Obviously they had their run, and they've had a good run with Cliff Kingsbury, and now they got the new coach in there as well. And Kingsbury's went to the NFL, but there's other sports, like you said, basketball. Texas Tech had a great run in the men's Final Four. So yeah, definitely a great sports school. I think you made a good choice. Although U of H wouldn't have been bad, and it's good to have other choices as well, like UTSA as well. So it's cool. That's pretty awesome. I want to ask you some of your favorite things. And whatever comes to mind, you just let me know.
All right.
Favorite food?
Chicken wings.
Mm. Okay, what flavor?
Uh, Probably like one rung below the hottest. So like an extra hot kind of flavor.
Okay, okay. So you would be perfect in a hot one, that
Yeah. Yeah, we'll see. Maybe I can make it through half of them or so, but
show. Okay.
yeah, there's a few good places here in Dallas, and the rise in like Nashville hot chicken and kind of
Mhm.
how that's like exploded, especially in Texas, has been great. Really coincided in the last year.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Favorite music genre?
Heavy metal.
Okay, I like that. Favorite movie genre?
Ooh, gosh, I guess I'd have to go with like 90s comedy, because that's what you grow up with.
Mhm.
I always talk to my friends about, the glory days of Adam Sandler, and how sometimes some of his newer movies I haven't really seen, but I think anyone from like age like 28 to 35 is always talking about like Happy Gilmore or Billy Madison or The Waterboy. And so those are the movies that you grew up with and that you love.
Yeah, yeah,
I'd say my taste is probably refined a little bit, but that's like the comfort food of movies, right?
absolutely. Those are the three classics of Adam Sandler's, without question. And obviously, I now pronounce the Chuck and Larry movie, the one he did with Kevin James, is pretty good too. That's the newer one. But those three that you mentioned, classics, no question about
One thing I always talk to my friends about is, when you're just, bullshitting at the bar or whatever, is like, what's your Mount Rushmore of Adam Sandler movies?
it. Yeah.
And so I think for me, it's probably Happy Gilmore,
Mhm.
Waterboy,
Mhm.
Big Daddy, and actually
Yeah.
The Wedding Singer. And I think because The Wedding Singer's got a lot of good heart, and
Right.
I think a lot of critics didn't like it, but
Right.
to me it's fun, and he and Drew Barrymore have great chemistry. And again, it's like it's just a fun movie, and like
It
you
is.
kind of know what you're getting, right?
Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. Favorite alcohol drink?
Well, I think beer is going to be the overall winner.
Okay.
Um, so in terms of what kind of beer,
Yeah.
So when I was younger, I probably drank a lot of like Kingfisher, which was hard to find, but I had a lot of friends who
Wow.
were from like South Asia, and so they introduced it to me. Um, and so now there's a lot of local good breweries here in Dallas. I think anywhere, any metropolitan area, you can find good breweries. But
Yes.
there's a place I like called Deep Ellum Brewery, which is in Dallas, and they've got a very nice selection. But if you're talking about like a mixed drink, I've always enjoyed White Russians. I think vodka-based drinks are always easy
Yeah.
for me to drink.
Yeah.
Over the pandemic, I started to try to make some mixed drinks just because you're at home and you can just
Yeah.
kind of mess around as much as you want.
Right.
So I started making some Manhattans and some old fashions. It's just not for me. Um, but I think the go-to drink in college though, and so on Fridays after you put and since we didn't have a paper over the weekend or whatever,
Right.
um, and if there wasn't a game you were covering on Friday, we'd go to a bar and we'd get tequila shots and just but the trick to doing a tequila shot if you're not a tequila person
Mm.
is to get like a small like companion shot of pineapple juice.
Wow.
And
Okay.
so do half the pineapple juice, then
Okay.
shoot the tequila, and then do the other half of pineapple juice, and you're great. And you can get in trouble because you don't have any of that like bad aftertaste. But it's a great way to just shoot tequila and not feel like you're about to throw up.
That's something new. I've never heard of that before. I'm a Hennessy and Coke guy. That's because
Hmm.
I love my Hennessy. But I do love a good tequila. 1800 comes to mind. That's pretty good for me. But I might have to try that. Pineapple and tequila. Okay. Interesting. Two more for you. Favorite restaurant.
Favorite restaurant. So the wing place I went to in high school is called Wings and Things, and that's in Sugar Land, Texas, on Highway 6. And so that was my favorite restaurant. Um, and so now though, I'm gonna be pretty plain, but I really like Torchy's Tacos. It's They have good variety, and like yes, you can probably get better tacos somewhere. You could probably get them cheaper, but it's always consistent. I think their queso is pretty good. I'm very much like I'm not a foodie or anything. I know what I like. When I go to a restaurant and I find something I like, I will always get the same thing.
Me too. Me too.
So I'd say those are kind of the two that I've really grown to appreciate. But if anyone from Dallas is listening to this, I would say Ricky's Hot Chicken in Richardson opened right at the start of the pandemic. That has the best hot chicken I've had here in Dallas, and I think it rivals Hattie B's in Nashville.
All right. I like that. I like that. Now, last one is the favorite place that you've ever visited.
Favorite place I've visited? Well, that's a good question. Again, probably basic, but Las Vegas, just because the memories I have, and it's always something where I'm going with friends. And I actually went there for work once. I was just like by myself gambling, which not the greatest thing, but I've got good memories for every time I went out there.
Right.
So Las Vegas is a ton of fun, and it's a place where you can go relatively cheap, and if you have good discipline, you can have a great time for cheap. I would recommend it to anyone, even if you're not into gambling or not into drinking, because there's a lot of fun things to do. There's great sights to see, great
Right.
people watching. I would avoid going when it's incredibly hot, but it's a ton of fun, and I'm looking forward to going again once the pandemic is done.
Yeah, no question about it. You're right. Obviously, I'm from the West Coast, so that was a 6 hour drive for me from San Diego to Vegas as a kid. I'm actually planning on going out there next month because graduation is coming up, and it's an early graduation present for me. So we'll go out there and have some fun for sure.
Yeah.
No doubt. Now we graduate tech, 2011. You go from there to, I believe, being a reporter with Pine Bluff.
Yeah, the Pine Bluff Commercial in Pine Bluff, Arkansas, which is about 45 minutes southwest of Little Rock, so kind of in the center of the state.
Right. So you go there. What did you learn, or what did you learn from there that you now apply to your job?
That's a good question. So that was the first job out of college, and so I joined a three-person sports desk. And so it was me, the sports editor named IC Morel, and another young graduate named Connor O'Neill, who now covers Wake Forest, and IC is still in Pine Bluff. He's left and come back. I think he's their editor now. Um, and so I think what I learned is really about you need to ingrain yourself into like the community that you cover.
Okay.
And moving from Lubbock to Pine Bluff, there are different priorities for different communities, especially in sports. And West Texas football was pretty good, only kind of in the smaller classifications. But then I moved to Pine Bluff, and all of the bigger classifications were very good. The smaller ones were all right, but they were kind of scattered across. And so you need to realize like, hey, maybe a sport is really big where you're from and maybe you care about it, or vice versa.
Right.
Might not be as big as where you're moving to, or maybe there's a sport that is really big. And when I was in Pine Bluff, I was covering, it's a small community newspaper. We did publish daily, except for we didn't have a Monday edition. So I got to have most Sundays off if there wasn't something going on.
Okay.
Um, and so like I was covering Little League baseball and Little League softball, and the quality wasn't that great, but like there were big crowds at these games, and like you're talking to a 12-year-old, and he or she is actually giving you a really good quote, and you think about how can you write this story for the community. You're not going to like rip a kid for giving up 6 runs or something like that, or you're not going to say the shortstops he's doesn't have an arm, et cetera, things like that. And so you find a
Right.
way to
Right.
write the stories that are appropriate. And so you learn a little bit about yourself as a journalist, is like, can I adapt? And also, maybe this is the only time the player gets his or her name in the paper, right?
Right.
And you want to do it service. You're not going to overwrite it and write 60 inches on a meaningless, in the grand scheme of things, little league game. But you give it the time of day and find a good story. And even if you're not familiar with the sport, like I remember having to cover like a triathlon, like I don't know much about, like, yes, I've gone on runs and I've gone swimming, never like back to back.
Right.
You got to treat it with respect, no matter what level you're covering, and people will notice when you're doing that, and they'll appreciate it. And so I learned that to do that by kind of getting out of what I guess was my comfort zone, because I was so familiar with West Texas, because I had also interned there, and learning more about different communities, and you can also apply that, I think, to any part of journalism.
I love that answer. I really do. And it's imperative that people know that, and people know that you have to really be entrenched in your community to be able to do a great job covering the stuff that you need to cover. And for me personally, I'm in a capstone class, in my final classes. I picked a summer baseball league to cover.
Mm,
So there's different things that I have to do as far as covering games, but also covering making feature stories, also doing other things as well. I just recently did a podcast for one of my assignments with the commissioner. So I totally understand. So this is a league that was established 15 years ago. So it's not really well, it hasn't been long, and it's also not well known because not a lot of people show up to games. So this is it's an important thing. I'm actually going to cover my first game this Saturday, and it's going to be very important for me to kind of talk to people, let them know who I am, because I'm going to be around a lot and be able to. And this is a step up from what I've covered before. As you know, we've talked, and I've covered prep schools and mainly games. This is college now, doing JUCO and baseball
yeah,
players. So,
I had to cover some summer league in Pine Bluff, and I remember one game, for whatever reason, the official scorekeeper like wasn't paying attention. He missed a run, and so when they were like trying to like, and I guess the dugouts, they weren't keeping great books. They had like discrepancies, and so they asked to see my book to see like, hey, what score do you have?
right.
And mine was right, and so that's what they went off of. And
Wow.
I was like, okay, well, I'm really glad I was paying attention, in this
Right.
9-7 game or whatever, where you can miss something if you're zoning out, which you can tend to do if it's hot, you're in the press box, and you're thinking about like, okay, I've got deadline coming up, but it's not for a few hours, whatever. But summer
Right.
league baseball is fun. Like a lot of times, like the players, like they're the kids who like, and kids, I mean, they're college students. They're the ones who love the game, and maybe they're not going to be great enough to go on to like even play, in high level minors or anything like that, but they love the game, and so they're going to have fun. There's going to be fun stories to be told.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Looking forward to developing some stories and getting to know them, and also getting to know the parents, possible coaches that come there, and possible scouts. Because there may be one or two kids that may do go off to that next level. Like you said, everybody doesn't get a chance to. There may be some scouts that come to some of these games for sure.
Yep.
I want you to talk about the balance of having a work life, social life, and maintaining your mental health while being in the professional field.
Hmm.
Obviously, as an assistant sports editor, you cover a wide range of sports, from prep, professional. You're working constantly all the time, not just with what you do, but also your writers that's underneath you. So, talk about how you maintain work life, social life balance, and then also maintaining good mental
So one thing I think it's a lot easier said than done is to kind of maintain boundaries. And for me, it's not necessarily like, okay, at 7 p.m. I'm not going to answer my phone, or like between 7 and 9 every night I'm gonna, everyone knows that I'm off. It's not something like that. It's, whatever works for you. And for me, it's worrying about what I can control and doing my best to not worry about things I can't, you know. And I can put myself and others in a better position to succeed by doing that.
health.
And so if Chris, I need a story from you and it's due by 5 p.m., I want to make sure I give you plenty of advance notice. And if
Right,
I have a question about it, well, should I wait to see if he actually just does it in his story?
right,
Like, hey, by the way, make sure you talk to this person. And you may say, okay, yeah, I've already got them lined up. Or they might say, oh, I never really thought about that. And so putting your people in a position to succeed and kind of see your vision for a story or a project or whatever is going to help you out. And so that way, if you file your story at 5 when you were supposed to, and then I say, well, hey, you should have talked to this person, why didn't you? And then you say, well, because of ABC. And I say, well, you still should go talk to them. Now I've given you more work to do when I should have told you earlier, and I've also given myself more work to do, right?
right,
um, and so I really just try to set my people up to succeed, and just kind of worry about what I can control. And at the same time, if I'm waiting on someone to email me, it's like, well, it's up to them to email. Like, I don't know what they're working on. Same thing. When you're a journalist, a lot of times a source, you're not their priority, and so you've got to make sure you've given them enough time to respond, and you've cultivated a relationship so they know that they are going to respond to you. But
right,
back to your point about kind of keeping mental health, it's also the people you surround yourself with and the activities you do. um, I kind of joke, but I'm serious that I get a lot of good work done before 9 a.m. and after 5 p.m. I'm not saying I'm working like 5 p.m. to midnight or anything like that, but
right,
because I know a lot of people aren't going to be contacting me then, and so I can kind of be in the zone. And so, like, if I wake up early to work out, I can think about things. And then if I'm working like at 8 a.m., between
mhm,
8 and 9:30 before my 9:30 meeting, I can get things done. Like, there have been times where I've gotten like an entire week's worth of Rangers planning done in 1 hour, just because I gave myself the time to do it before anyone else was on the clock, basically.
right,
And so to me, I always kind of have that sense of accomplishment. Like I said earlier, I'm competitive. I'm kind of competing against myself. Like, let's get as much stuff done now, and then at 6 p.m. rolls around, and I'm gonna go home, and I can feel good about myself because I got so much stuff done. And early in my career, especially when I was a younger editor, so I've been an editor since 2000 and gosh, is it 16 or 15?
okay,
But early on, I was like, I'm gonna be the first person in the office, last person to leave, and I was like, I was working 12-hour days, like in the office, and also doing stuff at home, and it just wasn't healthy. Now I did have to work extra because I had to catch up. When I was made the motorsports editor, I had never seen a NASCAR race ever in my life, never had any interest in it, but
right,
I had to really catch up. Same thing with when I was named the Olympics editor. Spend hours and hours just kind of going over not only the competitions, but all the things that go into it. So it does get a lot easier. So you can't just kind of start a new job and be like, all right, 40 hours a week, done. But you have to start and know that, hey, I'm going to really benefit by working like extra now. And that's one thing I also told my writers who start a new beat. It's like, look, you're going to be frustrated because you're not an expert, but you don't need to be an expert right now. And so having that mindset can really help you, especially when you're starting a new job. If you go from like, hey, you knew everything there is about Kennesaw State, basketball, and now you're moving to Oregon and you got to cover Portland State football and you don't know anything and you feel like you're just behind. And just
right,
think about, look, you don't have to be the expert on day one. You just got to worry about what you can control, and you can't worry about what people, if they are or not responding to you, you know, kind of do the work and just kind of understand that there will be a time when you are the expert. It doesn't need to be day one, but just put in the work on day one, and day 100 you'll be good. And so that's you know I've had a few different jobs in my life, and I wish I had that same mindset like when I was in Pine Bluff. Um, I think I think I still probably would have gone here, but maybe Pine Bluff would have been a little bit less stressful if I didn't freak out so much when I first got there.
Right. But when you got there, like you said, you kind of freaked out, but look at you now. I mean, you kind of worked your way up, and it's been the consistency of the hard work that you put in, and that's what you're telling everybody now that you don't need to be an expert on day one, and it is. Just using myself as an example. I know when I first got the call to say, "Hey, go cover a high school game," I was nervous. I'm like, I've never covered anything like this before. Um, I'm like, well, I gotta take my own stats. I gotta pay attention. I hope I don't miss a run. I hope I don't miss a pass. I hope I don't miss a touchdown. It's just one of those things where I was nervous. But the more I did it, when we started getting into game 7, game 8, game 9, I became more comfortable taking stats, became more comfortable writing faster on deadline. And now it's to the point where my sports editor here, if I'm back with him in the fall, he wants me to come back, and he said I did such a great job for the season. But I also got more experience doing basketball, lacrosse, and baseball. So more experience with different sports that I got. And now in my class doing college baseball. So it's just one of those things that, like you said, the consistency helps. But you also don't have to work 12 hours a day to try to prove yourself either and kill yourself. Just have that balance to be able to separate it and break away. So
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's getting the reps and getting the right reps too. You want to make sure that you're spending your time appropriately. And, especially for a young guy like you, when you start your career, you're not going to be able to start out like, oh, you're the Lakers beat writer for the LA Times. Congrats. And I've seen some people who have started out at a place and they didn't take the job as seriously because they always had their eyes set on something else. And I think it's important to have goals and ambitions,
right,
but you have to be able to kind of do the job that's in front of you. And I've always taken that. Like when I was, working at AMC theaters for $5.15 an hour, it's like, yes, I could definitely half-ass this and just kick the popcorn under the seat instead of cleaning it. But it's like, no, like, hey, like
right,
do it right, get the sense of accomplishment, of course. And it's like whatever your job is, like do it, be good at it. You'll find the most efficient ways to do it. Guess some days are going to absolutely suck if you're working hungover on like kids day or whatever. Yeah, it sucks, but you can be good at your job no matter what it is, and you can find like job satisfaction. A lot of
right.
it has to do with external factors, of course, but
Yes, indeed.
worry about what you can control.
Absolutely. Well said. Well said. This or that. I'm going to give you two different things. You go ahead and choose one, right? Burgers or tacos?
Burgers.
Drive-in or theaters?
Theaters.
Thanksgiving or Christmas?
Thanksgiving.
Bowling or badminton?
Bowling, because I guess you can drink while you do it, but I guess you can drink doing anything if you're, I guess, if
You
you're
got to
safe.
be damn good in badminton to drink and play. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Um, MJ or LeBron?
MJ.
Brady or Montana?
Brady.
Football or basketball?
Football.
Dallas or Lubbock?
Dallas.
Two more. All right. Texas or any other state?
Um, Gosh, I guess I'll take the field in this one. Any other state, as in I'll take the other 49,
Right.
just because I'm not going to pretend that Texas has everything. And maybe one day I get to live in New York City or anything like that. But Texas currently has everything I need, right?
Yeah, everything you need for sure. Now this last one, Tommy, is important. Okay. Popeyes or KFC? Talk to me.
Popeyes, 100%.
Thank you. Oh my goodness. I asked that question to so many other people. One person said they didn't even know what Popeyes was. I almost fell out my damn chair. I couldn't believe it. Oh
What's interesting is I've got a lot of Australian friends here, and back in Australia, for whatever reason, KFC is like the class of like fast food restaurants in
right,
Australia. And
right,
so when they like first come over here, there's like, oh, KFC, got to go get it. and they get it and it's like, this isn't what I remember. And it's like, okay, well, forget everything you thought you knew about KFC. And
Right.
I'm someone who does enjoy KFC. I'm not going to pretend to be an elitist there.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I'll take Popeyes just because they've got more spicy options, and their chicken sandwich that they came out with last year, it was very good.
Yes, it was.
Not
Yes,
only
it
was the
was.
sandwich good, but I thought their marketing was really good. And
Yeah.
you like to tip your cap to that and someone who's put a lot of thought into it and done a good job. So I'm still like, maybe I'll go give KFC another try. I never did try their double down sandwich. I don't think that's around, but Popeyes, I think, get the spicy chicken strips. But I will say that I am definitely going to get a biscuit over a roll every time.
Right. Oh, no question. No question. I'm Popeyes. The fries. The fries to me are
Mhm.
something different. KFC tried to come up with that, but hey, I ain't messing with them with the KFC fries like that. That's just not me. Okay, we're gonna do a little trivia. How good
Okay.
are you with your uh, Texas sports trivia?
Not so great because I didn't move here until high school, so I missed a lot of like the glory days. I wasn't here during the Cowboys, but I'll see if I can do all right. I'm better at like you know movie trivia, but we'll see how I can do Texas sports.
You know what? We have 5 questions. Okay. As long as you go over 50%, I think you'll be well respected. I
All
really
right.
believe so. We're gonna start off cupcake, but they're gonna get off harder as we go. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So the first question that I have is, in what year did the Dallas Stars win the Stanley Cup, and who did they defeat?
It was gosh, was it 99 over the Sabres?
Correct. We're 1 for 1, baby. We're one
All
for
right.
one. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. I told you. We're gonna start off good slow. Okay. Here's the next question. Who is the all-time leader in RBIs in Texas Rangers history?
Ooh, Michael Young.
Hmm.
Damn.
I'll give you one more guess.
Let's see. He's
I
the
believe
longest
he's
tenure.
third.
Third. Juan Gonzalez. Oh no,
Correct.
it's gonna be Pudge, isn't it?
No, it's
Is Juan
Juan
gone?
Gonzalez. Yeah, Juan
All
Gonzalez.
right.
That's right. Okay. All right. Listen, you're 2 for 2, so we're good. We're good. You get 2 guesses on each question,
All
so
right.
we're good. All right.
Okay, good.
Name the years that the Dallas Cowboys won the Super Bowl. Name the years that the Dallas Cowboys won the
Oh,
Super Bowl.
definitely not gonna be able to do it. Let's see. The three in the 90s again. This is gonna be terrible. I hope none of my colleagues watch this, but so I'm trying to think. The first Super Bowl like I was aware of, like when I was a kid, was Chargers Niners, and I'm trying to think how old was I when that game was played.
That was the
And so
'94 season.
yeah, so then 95, 96.
'95 is one. That's one
Yeah,
year. They beat Pittsburgh in '95.
yeah. So 96 would have been Packers Patriots, right?
Correct.
Okay, and so then they would have been 92, 93.
That's 2 more years. They went back to back in '92 and
Okay,
'93. Beat the Bills. There's 2 more years
yeah,
that you got to mention.
yeah. So I've got the 90s.
Do you want a hint?
I'm not sure I can get the 70s. Sure, I'll take a hint.
Okay. It was one of the years. I'll give you a hint on both. One of the years was Tony Dorsett's rookie year, and the other is when they beat this team. This team went back to back the following
Okay,
2 years.
all right. Hmm. I'm just gonna throw out a wild guess. 77.
Correct. That
All
was
right,
Dorsett's rookie year.
all right. Gosh, and the other one,
The last one.
is it before or after 77?
Before.
Before. All right. Do 72.
Mhm.
All right. What was
Okay.
it?
Okay. I'll give it to you. It was actually 71.
Okay.
71 they won because remember in 72 and 73 the Dolphins went back to back. 72 was the undefeated season that
That's
they
right.
had. So yeah,
Yeah.
but hey, we're good. You're good,
I'll take half a
and
point for those.
you definitely do. I'll give you half.
Yeah.
Okay. The next question: The Spurs won 5 NBA championships. Name the 5 teams they beat to win.
Ooh, that's a good question. So, hmm, 5 teams they beat to win.
Mm.
I'm just trying to think like who's been good in the East. Because you always think about like their great series like in the Western Conference Finals and all of those, and those was always like
Absolutely.
those are the series that you wanted to watch. I'm not sure I'm gonna get any of these. Um,
I can give you a hint, but that's it. I can give you a hint on each year on each year of the teams they won, but that's it.
let's see. Sure, I'll take a hint.
Okay, on the very first one, this Eastern Conference team was an 8th seed.
Okay.
On the second one,
Mm-hmm.
in 03, this team lost to the Lakers the previous year. In 05, this team was going for their back-to-back in the Eastern Conference. In 07, I want to say the Eastern Conference team got swept in 07.
Okay.
It was the only championship of the Spurs where they won in the sweep. And the last one, this Eastern Conference team went to their 4th straight NBA Finals.
Okay. So Cleveland.
That's 1.
Detroit.
That's 2.
Was it Cleveland again?
Mm-hmm.
No. Okay.
But you got Cleveland, Detroit.
Let's see. In the 8th seed.
Mm-hmm.
That's tough. I don't think I'm gonna get them. I could probably name every team.
That's okay. So the 1999, it was the New York Knicks. They were the 8th seed that made it, and San Antonio beat them in 5. Now in 03, it was the New Jersey Nets. If you remember, the Lakers beat them in 02. They went in 03. And then in 05, you got Detroit. That was 05. You got Cleveland, which was 07. And then 14 was the revenge year. That was Miami Heat, when they went their 4th straight NBA Finals with Wade, Bosh, and LeBron. So that's all good. Hey, you get a half a point for those 2. You got a couple right. Now this last one here is probably going to be the toughest one, maybe. So I have named the Texas high school these quarterbacks played at.
Oh, okay.
Drew Brees.
Austin Westlake.
Correct. Next quarterback, Nick Foles.
Lake Travis.
Mm-hmm.
No. Because he's an Austin guy too, right?
Yeah, he is.
He wasn't Westlake also, was he?
Yes, he was.
He was? Okay. That's what I was going to say, but you threw me off with those 2 Westlake guys at the beginning.
The next quarterback, Matthew Stafford.
Highland Park.
Correct. Kyler Murray.
Allen.
Correct. Last one, Patrick Mahomes.
White House.
Correct. Okay. You did really good on that one.
Redemption at the end.
I thought that'd be the hard one, but that's okay. I like that. All right. My next question to you is, what is some advice you would give to any up-and-coming sports journalist that wants to be in this industry and be successful?
So this is something I probably tell everyone, and it's mostly to college students, but it's get involved with your local newspaper in some capacity. And it doesn't mean freelancing game necessarily, because a lot of times you're not going to be able to. For example, I have students reach out to me wanting to freelance, and it's like, hey, well, we've got a lot of people who already kind of use, people who've been here a while, they already freelance for us a ton. So you might not have an opportunity to go out and write, 400 words off of a game. It, kind of has to like be in our wheelhouse, needs to work with our strategy. But we
Right.
are always looking for people who might be looking to take stats during the football season or take phone calls on like Tuesdays or Thursdays. And I'm not going to say that taking high school baseball calls on a Tuesday is going to lead you to, a Pulitzer Prize, but
Right.
being willing to do that means that you're going to have the right mentality and knowing you kind of like sometimes you do have to work your way up. A lot of times you're going to get lucky. I've definitely gotten lucky in my career, but there have been people who started part time that I've recognized and wanted to give them more because they've been very good at it, and I thought maybe those skills would translate, or they've done such a good job and they asked for something more. I wanted to give them something more, and so being willing to put in the time is really important. And that's not only just going to work for any paper that like will kind of have you when you're in college or even when you're graduated in the summer, you're just looking for something to do. But
Right.
put in the time on every story you're doing. Make sure you're doing the work ahead of time and talking to coaches, before you cover the summer league baseball game, or before you cover the high school basketball game. Like, don't just go in blind. Kind of understand what the expectations are and how you can do a good job. So just be willing to put the work in. In But at the same time, make sure that I don't mean working 90 hours a week because other people aren't willing to. I don't think that's super healthy. I think there's a way to kind of stand out by doing a good job as opposed to raising your hand for everything. Not that raising your hand for everything has kind of ever not worked for someone, right? Like, it's definitely worked. But just know that that's not the only key to success. So raise your hand for your local newspaper and kind of get in the door and be willing to do what they throw at you, because you never know what it's going to lead to. I started the Dallas Morning News as a part-time web producer in sports. I was working 3 shifts a week, and now I'm one of our assistant sports editors. Now, I did have like a different background. I didn't just kind of come off the street. Like, I didn't just graduate and walk in. So, but I had done work beforehand that made me an attractive candidate to be a part-time worker here. Whereas, when I just graduated, I wouldn't have been able to do that. And so
Right.
I put in time elsewhere, and there was an opportunity to work part-time at the DMN, and I took it. Um, and I kept on raising my hand and doing what I think was a good job. And they recognized that and was given more opportunities. So, you know, be willing to do things, and sometimes things just kind of work out for the best.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, opportunities are there. Listen, the worst that they can say is we don't have anything for you at the time. But it's just important to be able to reach out to people, like you said, to the local newspapers and stuff like that. Trust me, it does work. I reached out and became a stringer, a sports correspondent, to be able to go to the games, cover the games. Did a great job with that. Got more stuff thrown to me in more sports, and then got more stuff thrown to me in different sports. And then I started doing multiple games, and instead of just one game a week, started doing multiple games a week. And listen, it only goes up from there. So if you reach out and continue to reach out, continue to get published, and continue to just work hard, Tommy is right. The sky's the limit, and you may too get called up one day for sure. That concludes pretty much the Work Hard, Play Harder podcast, my man. I normally end like this. Is there anything else that we didn't touch up on that you would like to add before we conclude?
I think you hit on a lot of things. Gosh, well, I guess what would be your two go-to restaurants? Maybe something that someone might want to go to if they ever came to visit you.
Oh, well, no question. My go-to restaurant one is Ruby Tuesdays. I love Ruby Tuesdays. I'm a guy that loves the little slider burgers, and they got slider burgers in the menu. So I'm somebody that loves that. Plus, they're the only restaurant I know for dessert. They got like fried donuts. Like this thing is so good with the icing on it. Y'all can't. Ruby Tuesdays is off the chain. And then also Longhorns. I'm a steak guy at the end of the day.
Mhm.
I don't care if it's sirloin, I don't care if it's porterhouse, I don't care what it is, but I'm a steak guy. If you like steak, Longhorns, or maybe even Texas Roadhouse is another one. If you like steak, those are the two restaurants you definitely got to go to. But those are my go-to restaurants for sure.
Well, it's good to know. Gosh, I haven't been to a Ruby Tuesdays in a long time,
Yeah,
but
it's been, it's
maybe
been
it's
it's
time for a return.
Yeah, man, you got to get out there. I hope to be in Dallas at some point. I've heard great things about Dallas. Got family out there. Got a brother in Houston. I think that's about maybe 3 4 hours away from you guys, if I'm not mistaken. But never been to actual Texas. I do hear Whataburger. Whataburger is overrated. I do hear that a lot.
Um, I would disagree that it's overrated. I think people probably build it up. One of
Mm,
the great things about Whataburger is it's open 24/7.
okay.
Um, and even though you can't get their breakfast 24/7, you can get it like 11 p.m. to 11 a.m. And so it's
Wow.
really good late night food. And so pretty much like every high school sports reporter in Texas, it's like kind of like, the running myth that you go to Whataburger after every Friday night, right? And
Yes.
you get a burger, you also get a taquito, get a honey butter chicken biscuit. Um, and so I think people probably have built it up a bunch.
Yes.
Um, but I think their burger is like it's it's unrivaled in terms of kind of like what what you're gonna get and you're gonna get it. And like, yeah, I like In-N-Out burgers too, but like their fries aren't that great in my opinion. And I think Whataburger, I don't think I've ever been disappointed by Whataburger.
Mm.
The only time it's like when it's 3 a.m. in Lubbock on a Saturday night when everyone is there, like, yeah, you're gonna have to wait a minute to get your burger because everyone there is like drunk as you. So just wait. But yeah, Whataburger. And I haven't had Whataburger in a couple months, so maybe I'll head there this weekend.
Yeah, that's what I've heard about that. Whataburger is similar to the varsity out here. I'm not a huge fan of the varsity. In and out, I'm West Coast, so I know definitely In and Out, pretty good. But their fries aren't really that good. And I'm a burger type of guy. So, whenever I do come out there to Texas, which I know I'm going to make my way out there for sure at some point, I'm definitely going to try some Whataburger. Because I got to see for myself if it's overrated or not, for sure.
Definitely. Well, let me know what your rating is when you do end up going. And I always get the number two combo, which is like the double meat, and I add cheese, of course. I don't get tomato because I don't do tomatoes on anything really.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll what-size it if I'm like incredibly hungry, but most of the time just go with the medium and you'll be fine.
I'm very weird about food. I don't eat tomatoes on burgers. I eat them on tacos. I don't eat really anything on my burgers. I
Mm.
can't have nothing. Maybe lettuce. That's about
Hmm.
it. Lettuce and cheese only. This is full disclosure here for y'all. First time I've ever told this on video, but I have never had ketchup and I've never had mustard.
Like on anything or on a burger?
Period. I've never tried it.
Well, you got to try it. I used to be like very anti-mustard when I was a kid, but now like I can't eat a burger without it. Um, I don't do a ton of like spicy mustards or anything, but
Yeah,
one thing that's
nah.
great about Whataburger actually is they do have spicy ketchup, which is just kind of like jalapeno infused ketchup. And
Yeah.
so maybe when you go to Whataburger, try the spicy ketchup, and that can be your first ketchup experience.
You know what? For you, Tommy, I probably will do that. I promise you, I will do that. And I'm gonna definitely let you know how that comes out. I don't know about the spice because spice and me don't go well together. But ketchup in general, I think I will try it for the first time if when I should say when I go to Texas and whatever for sure. You and I, Tommy, we definitely gonna keep in contact. And it was a pleasure as always, my man, talking to you. It really is. And all I can say is enjoy the rest of your Tuesday, and we will be in touch. Thank you for coming in.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks so much for having me, and yeah, we'll talk later.
Yes, sir. Take care.
All right, see you, man.